Part 34. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 345. Is this impossible? Yan subconsciously grasped the armrest of the sofa. It's not ruled out that that person is targeting you, Lan said. After all, Mr. Ye, your 500 million is all about us winning today, right? Besides the Flash Wolves, a quasi-rich team, except for this, the other opponents are all make up the numbers without an ace pilot. If we want to make Mr. Yes 500 million losses worthless, this game is probably the only chance. Aimed at me, Yan was suddenly shocked, and the fat on his face trembled. It's impossible. I just placed the bet last night. It only lasted one night. How could it be possible? Nothing is impossible, Chi Hanfan said coldly. With the ability of an ace pilot, it won't take more than a few hours to memorize a 2,000 meter square competition map. Isn't that a sure defeat? Yan fell on the sofa with a dejected look on his face. Xiun, does your cat food have a lot of meat in it? That's not necessarily true. If you think this kind of cheating method can really win, then you are underestimating Valentina, Chi Hanfan said. The underground pipeline is not a hidden shortcut. Vibration. Lan took over the conversation and continued, when Wolfgang's mecha runs at high speed in the pipeline, the vibration generated will quickly spread along the pipeline wall throughout the entire pipeline network, even on the ground. Valentina above can also feel this vibration. Just as they said, Valkyrie suddenly walked out of the building where he was hiding and walked to the center of the main road in the city. She swept away the debris scattered on the surface, and controlled the mecha to kneel on the ground. The next second, the cockpit door opened, and Valentina, wearing a gray-green camouflage driving suit, jumped out. Immediately afterwards, she made a move that made the entire audience scream in surprise. She took off the anti-fragment protective gear that was put on the combat uniform, opened the zipper, and took off the upper body of the one-piece driving suit. It came down and turned to the back of the waist. At this time, Valentina was only wearing a black sports bra. Her sharp 8-pack ABS and waistcoat lines on both sides instantly attracted most of the people. The audience's attention. Valentina took a deep breath and lay directly on the ground. She pressed her cheek and body tightly to the ground, motionless. This move by Valentina. As an experienced ace pilot and senior commentator, Alex obviously understood Valentina's purpose from the beginning, but in order to mobilize the audiences she was in a mood, but deliberately pretended to be very surprised. I understand. She is feeling the vibrations coming from the ground. Although Wolfgang's breakthrough route is underground, the vibrations generated when the machine runs at high speed, the vibration will be transmitted along the concrete pipe to the surface. But what makes me curious is, can Valentina determine the opponent's current position just by relying on her own perception, without relying on any technological equipment? Of course. Looking at the approaching red dots on the map, Lan whispered, although it is a simulated venue, there is still a certain deviation compared to the real city in the old era, and this deviation, just missing this key place. What's the deviation? Yan asked subconsciously. He had neither understood the structure of the Earth cities in the old era nor participated in the design and construction of the competition venue. He was completely confused about what Lan said. In order to prevent earthquakes and leakage in urban underground pipelines in the old era, a metal frame was often added to the outside of the concrete pipeline. In addition to this metal frame, a protective layer was poured with cement and finally covered with soil. This protective layer is like a shock absorber in a car suspension system, which can minimize the impact of external vibrations on the pipeline, and the reverse is also true. Lan continued, but the map you made directly buries the prefabricated concrete pipes underground. The vibrations that are fed back to the ground are definitely several times stronger than the real underground pipes in the city. This vibration can even be felt by sitting in the ground. Valentina in the cockpit can detect it. Do you think it can be strong? Is there such a thing? Yan's mouth opened slightly with a look of surprise on his face. Brother Kaylan is really well informed, he even knows the underground pipe structure of the city in the old era. It's amazing. I only knew a few superficial things when I looked up information when I was bored. Kaylan said, let's focus on the competition. This is a major event closely related to Mr. Yes 500 million. From the small electronic map in the upper right corner of the viewing screen, we can know that at this time, Wolfgang's mecha was less than 200 meters away from Valentina's position. Valentina finally stood up. He returned to the cockpit, then controlled the machine body and stomped on the ground deliberately. Deliberately exposing one's position to the opponent depends on whether the opponent will take the bait, Kaylan said. As soon as he finished speaking, Alex said almost the same line, Valentina is deliberately exposing her position, her own position. She wants to lure the Wolfgang player to the bait. At the same time, Wolfgang, who was sitting in the cockpit of the beast-shaped mecha and could not hear the explanation at all, showed a ferocious smile. He pushed a joystick at the bottom of the seat hard, and the beast-shaped mecha, a pair of extremely sharp claws protruded from the end of the forelimbs. Caught you. The sharp claws forged from nano alloy suddenly opened, and in the next second, they started to rotate at high speed like a drill. Wolfgang fell backwards, grabbing the joystick and pulling the upper body of the mecha forward. Standing up, the propeller hidden on the inside of the hind limb armor burst out with powerful thrust, causing the entire machine body to jump directly and pounce on the top wall of the pipe above. But, when the beast-shaped mecha tore open the concrete road and broke out of the ground, Wolfgang only saw a faint trail, extending upwards. The second before he emerged from the ground, Valkyrie had already jumped into the air, and now he was hovering directly above the beast-shaped mecha. The two rapid-fire shotguns fired at the same time, and the dense shells hit the body of the beast-shaped mecha like a downpour. In the blink of an eye, the back armor of the beast-shaped mecha had fallen apart, and many places had been exposed to fragility. The internal structure of the beast-shaped mecha, for mobility and explosive power, the beast-shaped mecha has indeed sacrificed too much in terms of armor. Except for the shoulders, limbs, and chest, there is only a thin layer of light composite armor, which cannot be used at all. Withstand Valkyrie's barrages raining down from the sky. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 346. However, the beast-shaped mecha was not paralyzed. After withstanding the first round of bombardment, Wolfgang opened the energy shield and escaped from the hail of bullets. This kid is lucky, he hasn't even been beaten yet. Hound muttered in the spectator seats. Like him, many viewers who didn't know much about mechas thought the victory was decided the moment Valkyrie fired, but in fact, Valkyrie's round of shooting only knocked down the beast. It's just a layer of back armor on the mecha, and it doesn't cause much damage to the body itself. The internal structure of the animal-shaped mecha is different from that of the humanoid mecha. Most of the important parts are protected by the skeleton, Chi Hanfen said. It's like those in the human chest that are protected by ribs. The same organs. If its skeleton cannot be destroyed, then does it mean that it cannot be defeated? Ye Yan asked. The skeleton of a mecha can be said to be the strongest part of the mecha's body. It is also the only part among the rules of the mecha competition that does not need to be mixed with water and allows the use of original standard parts. Many of them are the skeletons of exploded mechas are basically intact when they are recycled. This shows how difficult it is to destroy the skeleton of a mecha in a competition. It's not necessary to destroy the skeleton of the beast-shaped mecha. If the current positions of the two sides can be reversed, Valentina should definitely win, Chi Hanfen said. As he said, if the beast-shaped mecha is above Valkyrie at this time, its abdomen will be completely exposed to Valkyrie's firepower, and this part is the magically modified steel, the only place that the Sand 6 frame cannot protect. Like most beasts in the old era, the soft belly is the weakness of this beast-shaped mecha. Kaylan once saw a joke on the internet. It probably started because someone asked on the internet, what to do if you encounter a ferocious indigenous creature in the wilderness, although everyone knows that this is just a false proposition to satisfy everyone's desire to have sex. But bored netizens still gave all kinds of strange and even outrageous answers, and the most outstanding one was naturally the strategy given by the strongest king with the ID name Arya. If that guy rushes over, I slide the shovel underneath it and slit its belly open with a knife. The internal organs will fall to the floor, or I can lean back and hold the long sharpened stick head upward. If it pounces on the ground, it will be stabbed to death by a stick before it even hits the ground. This meme once circulated wildly on the internet, and even extended to various versions, such as a sliding shovel will directly give it to you for free, a sliding shovel will directly feed it, a sliding shovel will kill the thunder beast, and so on. Number. However, if you want to get rid of this beast-shaped mecha, the most efficient way is really a sliding shovel. It's just that the center of gravity of the beast-shaped mecha itself is very low, and its abdomen is close to the ground. It might be possible for a person to get through the little gap left, but it is impossible for a body over 6 meters high. A sliding shovel was passed under it, and then it was disemboweled. If this continues, Valentina's first move advantage will soon disappear. As long as the opponent runs out of fuel in the thruster, they can drag Valkyrie into a close combat. In that case, the situation will be disadvantageous. The situation is disadvantageous. How bad is it? If we really fight that guy in close combat, what is our winning rate? In desperation, Yan didn't even notice that he had subconsciously classified himself as one of K's in Ian's camp. Of course, if it were K-Lan, he would have a hard time calming down with a 500 million bet there. 3-7, we are 3, and the opponent is 7. Hiss, this is bad. Yan glanced at the viewing screen, and his expression suddenly worsened. It's over, you see. Miss Valentina is also starting to get nervous, and her shooting is completely gone. It was accurate, all of them hit the road, not a single shot hit the opponent's mecha. K-Lan and others also turned their attention back to the competition. Valentina took advantage of the last 10 seconds of staying in the air to continue pouring firepower towards the ground, but she didn't know whether it was because of nervousness or the opponent's dodge skills. It was so exquisite that all the hundreds of shells fired in the second round hit the road. No matter how nervous she is, her shooting accuracy cannot drop so much. Moreover, for a talented ace pilot like her, the more nervous she is, the more powerful she can be. Look at the ballistic trajectory in the replay screen. She didn't regard the opponent's mecha as a target at all. Chi Hanfan frowned and analyzed quickly. If bombarding the opponent's body fails to achieve results, bomb the road instead. The road, the abdomen is close to the ground, underground. I know her strategy. K-Lan slapped hard head, said to everyone, but before he could explain further, Valentina had already told all the audience the reason for her actions with practical actions. The second round of shooting was over, and the fuel for the thrusters was almost exhausted. She simply turned off all the thrusters. Valkyrie, which suddenly lost all support in mid-air, fell straight to the ground, just in time to fall into the previous beast-shaped machine. In the big hole that had drilled out. In the process, she had already replaced the last set of magazines. Seeing that his opponent's fuel was finally exhausted, Wolfgang quickly approached Valkyrie, but he didn't expect that his opponent fell into the cave he had just broken. This minor accident immediately made Wolfgang there was a brief lag in the operation, and it was this flaw that determined the outcome of this game. Valkyrie, who fell into the underground pipe, took advantage of the situation to slide forward, and the beast-shaped mecha was also running in this direction. The two were instantly on the same vertical line. At this time, Valkyrie raised the weapon in his hand and fired a round of fierce shots at the superior. The road surface, which had been damaged by the second round of shooting, collapsed instantly. The beast-shaped mecha on it instantly fell into the ground like a beast that had stepped into a pit. Its fragile abdomen hit the cannon raised by Valkyrie. Mouth. The beast-shaped mecha waved its limbs in vain, but it was unable to dodge the close shots. With a dull explosion, the smoke-belching machine slammed heavily in front of Valkyrie, and there was no way to avoid it. Not even an inch of movement. In the second group stage match, the Hunting God Hunting Group won. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 347. After defeating this quasi-rich team, Valentina also used her overwhelming personal strength to win the remaining 3 games against make-up teams without an ace pilot. In this way, Kaylan and the others have obtained tickets for the knockout rounds in advance. Compared with those death groups that include 4 or 5 wealthy and powerful teams, the difficulty of qualifying for this group that the God Hunting group is assigned to is already very low, provided that there is no one who can jump out of those teams that make up the number of levels. The dark horse of Leapfrog Challenge is here. There are still 2 games against wealthy teams in the first round of the group stage. My personal suggestion is that if the one we draw is not a one-on-one solo game, we will just forfeit. Anyway, we have won all 5 games now, even if we only beat a few teams that made it to the next level in the second round, we can still qualify, Chi Hanfan said. I agree with this proposal, Kaylan nodded and said, we are already halfway into the knockout rounds. Instead of fighting to the death with those powerful teams in the group stage and exposing all our trump cards, it would be better to choose the strategy of hiding one's strength and biding one's time. Valentina's strength has been clearly revealed, and her popularity is one of the best among all ace pilots. As for me, although I only played in 1 game, because of the excessive body and play style special, coupled with the instant kill of an ace pilot whose strength is far superior to mine, many teams will definitely regard me as a key research object. Now our most hidden trump card is Asano Akira, at least in the group stage, we cannot use this trump card. I agree, too. The third person to speak was Hound. Aren't you just pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger? I understand, that's how cool articles are written. Anyway, there is no extra bonus for winning the group stage. Take the initiative to avoid hard battles. It can also save a lot of repair costs. It's not clear who is the tiger and who is the pig. Even those powerful teams that have been famous for a long time will definitely have many unknown secret weapons in almost every final. There will be amazing new ones. Tactics, coupled with the specialized aircraft built specifically for such tactics, this is the most exciting aspect of the finals, Layton said. You guys just like to target me, right? Hound rolled his eyes at Layton with great dissatisfaction. But this year is completely different from previous years. The quarterfinals and semifinals have been cancelled, the top 16 teams were directly thrown into the same competition area. The randomness is too great. Even if they have trump cards, you may not be able to stay until the end. After all, if there are attrition from the beginning, the second half of the game will probably be very difficult. Chi Hanfan shook his head and retorted. By the way, let's talk about the elimination mechanism and the safe zone. I think the event organizer shouldn't be able to create a poisonous circle in the ruins similar to the one in the game, right? Kaylan looked at Yayan, asked. Yayan glanced at Song Xiun beside him, hesitated for a moment, and said, there are 2 types of eliminations, namely the elimination of aircraft and the elimination of pilots. Assuming that 2 teams encounter each other, one of the teams will, if the team is completely wiped out, and the other team loses 2 matches, then the entire team will be judged to be out of the game, including the men and the matches, and will be taken out of the arena by the recovery ship patrolling the arena. The other team has lost 2 matches. As long as the pilot has not lost the ability to fight, the team will only be judged as out of the game, and the pilot himself can continue to stay in the field, if the special prop of the resurrection beacon can be found in the next game. If so, you can summon a supply ship to airdrop a whiteboard skeleton. However, the movement of the airdropped skeleton can be seen in most of the arena, and it is easy to attract nearby teams. After all, there is almost no whiteboard skeleton without any weapons. Combat ability. It's basically the same as the news my brother got. Song Xiun glared at Yan. Why, damn fat man, are you still worried about me telling my brother these things? Then you can rest assured, he knew about the elimination match the night before. All the details. You are not the only one in the Ye family who is cheating. Hey, Xiun, this is called intelligence sharing. Brother Kaylan and the others are now my partners. Can it be called cheating on partners? Yan quickly defended, the 500 million bet just now, but he made a lot of money. You know, when he placed the bet, the odds of betting on the beast god hunting group to win today were still very high. What about the safe zone? Is it using biochemical toxins or ionizing radiation? Or is it some other special mechanism? Kaylan asked. Actually, there is no such thing as a poisonous circle. Yan was slightly ashamed, because changing the competition system is a temporary decision, so we have no time to make such a thing. The so-called safe zone is just a circle of shrinking holographic light. It's just a curtain, and the safe zone is within the light curtain, and those who stay outside the light curtain, whether they are pilots or aircraft, will be eliminated. Kaylan was slightly startled. In other words, as long as you leave the safe zone, even for less than a second, you will be eliminated. Yes, Yan nodded. Signal transmitters are installed on the participating aircraft and the pilot's driving suit. If they come into contact with the edge of the light curtain, they will be counted out. So, tactics like cheating, detours, etc. that are common in chicken games cannot be used in this knockout match. Kaylan pondered, I don't have this point. Come to think of it, in this case, the team in the Destiny Circle will have a great advantage. There is no Destiny Circle, Yan responded. The safe zone is not random, but shrinks at a constant speed with the center of the field as the center. This design is quite reasonable. You don't have to worry about poison escaping in the central position, but you have to face attacks from multiple directions. Moreover, there will definitely be a lot of teams jumping in the central area at the beginning, Kaylan commented. With a configuration like ours, we will definitely not be able to defeat those three ace giants in a ground fight. It is better to grow steadily close to the circle, wait for opportunities, and try to avoid fights when the equipment is not good in the early stage. Those who can persuade fights will definitely. We should not take the initiative to start a group, and the whole word is coward. Although it sounds a bit wretched, it can at least ensure that we enter the second stage of the knockout round. Layton analyzed. Unlike the Hound, who is not very exposed to video games, he is usually boring. When I was young, I still liked playing games, especially mecha and shooting games. There is one more thing, I wonder if you have noticed it. Jolajitu, who had been sitting cross-legged on the sofa and listening, suddenly said, didn't the young master of the Ye family say that as long as the signal installed on the machine or the pilot is if the emitter touches the edge of the light curtain, it will be eliminated? So when fighting on the edge of the safe zone, wouldn't it be possible to kill someone instantly by simply pushing the opponent out of the safe zone? It's like a sumo wrestling match. Stepping outside the circle, the ground is considered a loss. What a great idea! Using the rules to directly eliminate your opponents is indeed of great practical value. Hound immediately gave Jolajitu a thumbs up. I didn't expect that, Mongolian man. In addition to being full of tendons, you also have a very flexible brain. Hee, this is nothing. After all, in the Mongolian settlements, there are often bok competitions, and there are often some Japanese people who come to our place to recruit sumo wrestlers. I have also practiced Iban wrestling and sumo wrestling for a while, so this came to mind right away. P.S. Bok refers to Mongolian wrestling. It is a traditional sports and entertainment activity of the Mongolian people and one of the main events of the Nadam conference. PPS. Thanks to Master Shiraishi, the account has been frozen, and the old bookworm 1980 rewarded me with 100 starting coins. A new volume has been opened. The length of the chicken eating plot this time will probably be about the same as the previous single ruins. You can completely regard it as a new copy. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 348. Probably all the luck has been used up in the group drawing. In the next game, Kaylan and the others were drawn into a 3-on-3 team battle. According to the original plan, all 2 games were played against rich and powerful teams. Chosen to abstain. In the second round of the group stage, after they won 2 games in a row to ensure that they would qualify 100%, they simply gave up all the remaining games. Among the many male pilots, Valentina stood out. Her popularity has soared to the top 3 among all participating aces. Her multiple abandonments have not only not reduced her popularity, but have created a hungry marketing effect. In the past 2 days, the office emails of Hound and Chi Hanfinite is almost filled with invitation emails for business cooperation. Of course, it is also mixed with letters of love from many enthusiastic fans. In the blink of an eye, the 2 stages of the group stage have come to an end, and the new knockout competition format announced by the competition organizer has set off a new round of barrage frenzy on the internet. But compared with the online audience, the audience who bought tickets to watch the game were excited. Even under the suspended platform, Kaylan could hear the roar of the audience in the ordinary viewing area below. One after another, RNM, refund your money, echoed throughout the entire stadium. If the security guards who maintained order were not professional mercenaries with live ammunition, they might have demolished the entire viewing area. It is not difficult to understand the anger of the audience, because the knockout competition venue is located in the ruins called C-039 Sandstone Abandoned City. For safety reasons, the general viewing area was set up more than 10 kilometers away from the ruins. In this way, these spectators who have spent a lot of money to buy tickets can only watch the game through the screen like the spectators who live online for free on the Ark. Coupled with the poor food and accommodation environment, these spectators' hearts, the accumulated dissatisfaction suddenly burst out, which led to the current situation. It was not until the organizers of the competition came forward and promised to refund 50% of the ticket price of all general viewing area tickets, and gave each spectator a beautiful souvenir, that the storm calmed down. To be honest, I think your operation is a bit of a loss, Layton muttered. The souvenirs promised by the event organizers are actually competition limited mecha assembly models. If this thing is sold back to the Ark, any model can be used. It can be sold for a high price of several thousand credits, and some of the popular and rare models can be sold for more than 5 figures, almost worth the price. Loss? Don't worry, they won't lose. Kaylan said with a smile. Although it offended the audience, the new knockout competition system increased the ratings of the online broadcast several times, and the advertising revenue alone was if the organizers of the event can make a lot of money, who will care about the small amount of money for the model? Don't you think so, Mr. Yet? Ah. Yan felt a little embarrassed when Kaylan asked him. Actually, I don't know the specific operation of the competition, it should be about the same. The children of those aristocratic families on the Ark are generally divided into 2 types. One type has received extremely strict elite education since childhood. They have almost no time of their own. Even studying art, wine tasting, collecting, etc. in order to cultivate the so-called aristocratic temperament. The ultimate goal of life for such people is to inherit the family power from their fathers and bring it to a new peak. And the other type is a real playboy. Although they are still considered a member of the nobility, the family's previous generation would never consider leaving the family's future in the hands of such people. The meaning of their existence is not to serve as a business marriage. In addition to being a target, he probably spent money to help the family. According to Ian's observations in the past few days, Yan most likely belongs to the latter. But it was precisely because of this that he was willing to deal with this fat man. After all, if you make friends with the former kind of person, you will be calculating against each other almost every minute. This kind of person who only has interests in his eyes and no emotions may be calling you brothers 1 second, and the next he sold you secretly in seconds, and the guy who was sold might still be stupidly counting money for others. 2 days later, the 64 teams that qualified from the group stage boarded the YIP Consortium super airship Zilong. This Zilong is not only the VIP viewing area for the knockout stage, but also the starting point for the contestants. The huge airship slowly sailed into the airspace above the abandoned sandstone city. This ruins arena had been arranged several days in advance. Tens of thousands of drones surrounded the entire arena, and the projection light curtain was like a super large energy shield generally shrouded the abandoned city. 32 recovery ships patrolled back and forth above the light screen, and hundreds of laser beacons shot straight into the sky. The ancestral dragon will drive forward along the Great Rift Valley in the middle of the ruins. Competitors can parachute at any time before the ancestral dragon leaves the competition area, and when they land, the signal transmitter will be activated. Of course, according to the rules, players who land early are allowed to shoot at players who are parachuting. If the mecha is destroyed in the air, it will also be considered eliminated. As soon as the ancestral dragon entered the competition area, 2 participating teams jumped in. These 2 teams are ordinary level teams, and their tactical ideas are obviously not much different from K-LAN and others. Have you seen those laser beacons? Each laser beacon is a supply point. If you want to obtain weapons, ammunition, or mecha accessories, you must go to these supply points. The brighter the beacon, the brighter the beacon. It means the supplies at this supply point are richer. Yan was still following K-LAN and the others, explaining some more detailed rules. K-LAN noticed that in the center of the bottom of the Rift Valley and on the left and right sides of the upper city, there were 3 extremely bright laser beacons. These 3 beacons were like 3 pillars of light, extremely eye-catching. Those 3 positions are super resource points. Although they are very fat, I advise you to give up. Yan said. Of course, I don't want to land in a box. K-LAN nodded. As he spoke, several wealthy teams jumped out of the cabin and glided towards these 3 super resource points. Let's jump here. K-LAN selected a supply point on the edge of the ruins. The laser beacon here was very dim. It was difficult to find that there was a supply point in this corner without looking carefully. Set off. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 349. But less than 5 seconds after K-LAN and the others jumped out of the cabin, another team of contestants also jumped out and clung to them. Valentina was the first to notice the tail behind her and said in the team channel, "Someone is following us. Is there someone who is trying to snatch the corner of this extremely poor person from us?" K-LAN pulled the image of the monitor behind him in front of him, and with just one glance, he had already guessed the other person's purpose. The 3 aircrafts trailed long purple and yellow trails behind them. The trails are one of the symbols used to identify the teams of players when skydiving, and the team represented by the purple and yellow colors was the one that lost in the opening match. To their Angres Mecha Athletic Club. This group of people is here to seek revenge. K-LAN said, "Let's pull to the left and try to stick to the edge of the safe zone." Just as K-LAN expected, the 3 of them had just turned in the air, and the 3 members of the Angres Club immediately followed them, not caring that the 2 teams had already passed through the area where the supply point was. "These guys are really chasing after each other," K-LAN lamented, but the other 2 people in the team were the kind of boring gourds who cherished words as much as gold, which made him feel like he was performing a one-man show. In this way, after landing, Asano Akira and I will be responsible for holding them back. Valentina, you rush to the supply point immediately, get the weapons and then join the battle. Asano, you should be fine. "I will do as you say," Asano Akira replied. Although he helped Asano Akira obtain an M5 level driving license before the competition, his actual driving level was not even that of an entry-level M1. In addition, he was blind and could not see the surroundings through the monitoring screen in the cockpit. Scene, all he can do is to follow the instructions given by Kaylan and make the mecha perform some preset actions stored in the chip, that's all. Follow the movement route I gave you. After landing, run 165 meters ahead. There is a half-collapsed spiral tower, which is exactly tangent to the light curtain. That is the battlefield I planned, Kaylan said. The entrance of the tower is located, forget it, it won't be used later anyway. You can just start the propeller and jump up. Set the ascent height to 65 meters and the angle as vertical as possible. The area of the top platform of the tower is not large. Be careful not to crash into the light curtain. Fortunately, with the assistance of the ability to stop time, Kaylan was able to transmit various motion parameters accurate to meters to Asano Akira's body. He felt like a puppet master in a fantasy game, manipulating the character's body at the same time, while still having to concentrate on controlling the movement and fighting of the puppets he summoned. If there was no time to stop, he might not be able to take care of it at this time. Those people are biting hard. Kaylan glanced at the altimeter. The three of them were only the last 100 meters away from the ground. If they descend further, it would be time to activate the buffer jets. It's now, Valjingna, just raise the altitude and glide to the supply point, don't save fuel, they probably won't be able to react. As soon as he finished speaking, Valkyrie had already separated from the three machine formation. Several propellers on the fuselage ejected powerful flames at the same time, pushing the body to fly towards the green cursor not far away, while the three pursuers behind it, then landed on the ground together with Kaylan and the others. Quick, take over the spiral tower first, Kaylan said. They had just landed. The only weapon on their bodies was the standard mecha fighting knife. Without long-range weapons, the heights were high. If you hit the low ground, you will have an absolute advantage. The place he chose to land was an empty square. The spiral tower that was tangential to the light curtain stood so alone in the center of the square. Before the Alpha civilization disappeared, this place should be regarded as their religious sacrificial site. The mysterious and complicated patterned ditches in the square also illustrate this point well. May the blessings of the great gods last forever, may the blessings of the great gods cover all things. Kaylan silently recited the Alpha text hidden in the pattern in his heart, while with the assistance of the propeller, he half ran and half jumped the posture of rushing towards the spiral tower. The three members of the Angres Club did not divide their forces to pursue Valentina. In their view, Kaylan and the two who lost their ace pilot could not pose a threat at all. The best option was to take advantage of this opportunity to quickly kill them both. One then turned his head, and the three of them attacked Valentina together. Even if Valentina gets the weapon, she will be at an absolute disadvantage under the siege of three people. It is better to cut off one finger than to injure 10 of them. In a team melee, the number of people is always the most important factor. When the three of them landed, they were about 80 meters away from Kaylan and Asano Akira. When Kaylan and Asano Akira arrived at the top of the tower, the distance had been shortened to less than 30 meters. I'll block the stairs. If they choose to use thrusters to fly up, you should know how to deal with it, right? Yeah, Asano Akira nodded, even though Kaylan couldn't see it at all. There were many large broken stones scattered at the top of the spiral tower. Kaylan directly pushed these stones down the stairs. Although the rolling stones could not cause damage to the high-strength skeleton of the mecha, they could still hinder the movement. After doing so, the two Angres players who rushed into the tower were unable to move even half a step forward. They could only squat on the spot and raise their arms to resist the impact of the stones. After all, the edge of the stairs was right next to the light curtain. If the center of gravity is unstable and falls in, even the human body will be eliminated directly. The ace pilot of the Angres Club chose the same method as Asano Akira to climb up the tower. He started the thrusters more than 10 meters away from the base of the tower and flew directly up. However, before his feet touched the ground at the top of the tower, Akira Asano's mecha suddenly pounced on him and hugged him directly. The skeleton used by Akira Asano is not the latest Phoenix prototype launched by the YIP Consortium, but a lightweight skeleton called Jungle Scout Type 3. In addition to being light and flexible, the most special feature of this skeleton is that it looks like it has two arms like a gibbon. Although the opponent immediately pulled out the fighting knife and cut off the power pipeline in the left arm of the Jungle Scout, Asano Akira had already locked the joints long before that. Unless these two arms are cut off, the other party will not be able to break free from this embrace. After completing this action, Asano Akira entered another preset action into the console, and then jumped out of the cockpit from the emergency escape hatch on the back of the mecha. This second action is a very common throw in unarmed combat. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 350. The two mechas fell down the spiral tower together and fell just outside the light curtain. The ace pilot of the Angres Club couldn't help but spit out a curse word. Although he was unscathed sitting in the cockpit, the signal transmitter on his body had been triggered, which meant that he and his crew has been eliminated, and even if his teammates can find the resurrection beacon, they can't recall him to the game. With the reaction ability of an ace pilot, he had every chance to abandon his armor and escape before landing, but the Jungle Scout locked on his body directly sealed the cockpit door with his body. Even if you want to eject the entire cockpit, you can't do it. For the sake of the defensive performance of the cockpit, the new frame rarely reserves an emergency escape hatch on the back, and the Jungle Scout is one of the few within the rules. One of the skeletons of this old design is retained. Damn it! Damn it, to be eliminated in this way. He raised his fist and hit the fire button hard, but nothing happened, not even the anti-infantry machine gun embedded in the skeleton. Being demolished, even if he is an ace pilot, there is nothing he can do to face an opponent like a street gangster fighting with no martial ethics at all. The recovery ship slowly floated above the spiral tower. The hatch at the bottom opened, and several mechanical arms hung down. They grabbed the two bodies that were still hugging each other and slowly rose up. What? The captain was eliminated? What on earth is going on? What happened? Did that woman rush over so quickly? In order to be completely fair, the eliminated players will be eliminated at the moment the signal transmitter is triggered. All communications with teammates will be cut off directly. It is for this reason that the two pilots in the tower have no idea what just happened at the top of the tower. The only information they can get is that they are the only ones left in the team. Two people. The positions of the two machines were immediately in chaos. K-Lan hit them with rocks and pushed them back. Asano Akira was holding a sword in one hand and a kaitang also forged with nino alloy, like a spider. Climbed down the outer wall of the spiral tower. At this time, the second step of K-Ian's battle plan, attract the attention of the remaining two people, and Asano Aki will surround him and destroy the enemy's body. Everyone is a blank slate, with neither outer armor protection nor standard equipment. It is an anti-infantry weapon. Even if Asano Akira is not familiar with the structure of the mecha, he can still slash at the exposed pipelines and cables with his sword. K-Lan has always believed that Asano Akira's unusual hearing may have nothing to do with his ears, but is closer to an omnipotent perception ability, especially in combat situations. No matter how noisy or disturbing the environment is, no matter how many sound sources there are, he can still hear the slight sound of the rubber sleeves outside the cables rubbing against each other, thereby accurately locating the target of the attack. If he hadn't told him, no one would have been able to tell it just by looking at this battle video. He is a blind man. Perhaps due to luck, Akira Asano cut off the main power transmission tube located on the opponent's back with the first blow. The machine's arms were still waving to block the rocks, but the movement of the lower body suddenly stopped. This incongruity caused him to lose his balance in the blink of an eye, falling to one side, and most of his body fell into the light curtain. "Well done. There's only one left," Kaylan shouted. After finally throwing away the stones in his hand, he simply pulled out his fighting dagger and rushed towards the only remaining opponent. This guy had already confused. Asano Akira's movements were very fast, and his target was small. This Angres Club contestant didn't notice that a human had circled their two mechas. After realizing that his teammates were attacked from behind, after the attack, his first reaction was that the terrifying woman was back. He was a substitute player for the Angres Club. He did not play against Valentina in the opening match, but his skin was blackened and chapped by the roast, and he still exuded the unique smell of burnt protein. A teammate was carried away by the medical staff in front of his eyes. The tragic scene still lingers in his mind. Compared with pilots like Valentina who came from the military, professional mecha competitors like them who have never been on the battlefield are not the least bit less able to bear it. Kaylan effortlessly stabbed this guy's main monitor with his dagger, then kicked him into the light curtain. 2 against 3, and with his own ace pilot not participating in the battle, at the cost of losing only one aircraft, the team destroyed the Angres Club, including an ace pilot, and even saw too many explosions. Alex, who was in a cold situation, was speechless for a while. Director, replay the battle scene just now. Cut the camera to the back of the two Angres mechas. Oh my god. I just noticed now that the second mecha is the escaped player Akira Asano. It was destroyed. What is that in his hand? A Japanese samurai sword? A samurai sword that cuts through mechas, am I reading that correctly? Throughout the stadium, there are small drones used to monitor the game, and the game footage seen by the audience is also transmitted to the internet through these small drones. Could it be, is Akira Asano the secret ace of the hunting god hunting group? But as far as I know, his mecha driving license is only M5 level, which has just reached the competition threshold. As for the driving time, it is only a short time. A pitiful 60 hours. Alex exclaimed, grabbing the phone. Hey, let me tell you. The hound sitting on the sofa crossed his legs and grinned from the corner of his mouth to his ears. If this guy knew that Akira Asano's M5 driver's license was obtained through a paid trust, don't tell me the actual driving time. It's been 60 hours, not even 6 hours, his expression must be more exciting, right? I don't know if it will be more exciting, but Akira Asano should be suspended. Chi Hanfan crossed his arms and said seriously. Oh, Lao Chi, you are really rigid. You can't even understand a joke. It's boring. It's okay to cooperate with your troops, but chatting with you is boring. It's really boring, Hound said somewhat depressedly. Maybe he doesn't use a mecha at all. Alex still couldn't recover from the shock. He is a humanoid mecha. I even began to wonder if they planned to let Akira Asano abandon him from the beginning. Mechas, fighting on foot, it's just crazy. At the same time, inside the arena, Valentina finally arrived at the spiral tower and completed the rendezvous with Kaylan. Although she was also surprised that Kaylan and his team destroyed the Angres Club, due to her personality, she didn't express it in her words or expressions. She just gave them a thumbs up with her mecha. Where's the gun? Kaylan looked at her Valkyrie. It was still a blank skeleton. Not only was it not equipped with any weapons, it didn't even have new accessories added. There are no guns. The supply point only has a set of light modular armor and a small amount of energy crystals. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to hold on, so I rushed here without equipping you, Valentina said. P.S. Thanks to Noering Name for the 10,000 starting coins, and thanks to Old Bookworm 1980 for the 300 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 351. No weapons. Kaylan suddenly felt a headache. If you want to say what is the most frustrating thing about a chicken game, the first thing that must bear the brunt is the search of 4 or 5 houses, not even a small pistol, and a mess of supplies. Pinpin stuffed a backpack, and as soon as he went out, he ran into a group of burly men with black coins. He fell to the ground and was patched into a box at once. He was a hero among couriers. To sum it up in 6 words, no gaming experience. The 3 of them arrived at the supply point they had selected at the beginning. This was a neighborhood that had been almost razed to the ground. Several brand new equipment boxes were placed in the middle of the ruins. Kaylan went up to check them out. Sure enough, they were like Valentine. As Na said, apart from a set of modular light armor that is common to all skeletons, the only supplies in the box are a bunch of energy crystals totaling less than 100 units and a dozen bags packed in aluminum foil. Get up the self-heating military rations. Valentina, put on this suit of armor first. You are the main force in the battle between mechas. We must give priority to ensuring your equipment, Kaylan said. Within 400 meters from here, there are 3 more. We searched the supply points one by one from near to far. Since the skydiving location they chose is located on the edge of the safety zone, no other participating team has landed in this area except themselves and the Angres Club, who came to seek revenge, so there is no need to worry about encounters in the early stage. Other contestants, but despite this, what Kaylan least expected to happen still happened to them. The other 3 supply points also did not have any weapons and ammunition. Although Valentina's body was equipped with a 3-piece set of full body armor, external thrusters, and energy shield generators, they still only had the only weapons they could use: the standard fighting dagger carried when parachuting. Is this intentional by the organizers of the event? Kaylan knew that the setting up of this supply point and the delivery of materials were definitely not random. A large number of high-level materials were concentrated in the center of the safety zone, and the farther out they were, the closer they were to the safety zone. At the edge of the area, the supply points become poorer. In the most remote places, there are even several supply points connected, and there is not even a 12.7 mm caliber anti-infantry machine gun. For a moment, Kaylan deeply felt the malice from the organizers of the event. They clearly wanted to force all participating teams to crowd together. Kaylan clearly remembered the distribution of beacons he saw on the airship. Almost all the next level high-level supply points were centered around those 3 super resource points. In the surroundings, and in a remote corner like the one where they landed, the supplies in maybe a dozen blocks combined were not as much as the one supply point there. When it comes to the second stage of the knockout round, there will probably be very few teams jumping into this kind of place. This is the purpose of the event organizers, to develop all the way and passively avoid the competition. I am afraid that the vast majority of the audience will find it boring. If you want to make the game exciting, you must force all teams to participate in the melee. It is best to be the kind that does not stop from landing to the chicken. Using the distribution of materials to guide the tactical planning of each participating team is obviously very effective. Kaylan and the others are still empty-handed here, but he has already heard the roar and explosions of various advanced weapons more than 10 kilometers away. Those teams who dare to jump to the super resource point will definitely be dead as long as they can come out alive. Top equipment. Even if Kaylan and the others can make it to the finals, the equipment gap between them will widen to an extremely exaggerated level. As long as someone hits you with one shot, you will kneel down directly, while the weapon in your hand may be knocked down in one shot. There is no way to leave a few scratches on the opponent's armor. No matter how good the operation is, it will be difficult to create any extreme reversal of the plot with weapons that are too slow to polish other people's outer armor. Kaylan took a look at the statistics shared by the organizers of the event with each contestant. The game has only started for half an hour, and there are only 25 of the 48 contestants left in this game, and the reduction has almost reached half. However, the number of surviving teams was not listed in the data, so Kaylan could not determine how many full formations the 25 people included, and how many lone wolves and remnant teams there were. There was another burst of intensive gunfire in the distance. When the noise subsided, only 22 people remained. Listening to the sound, the battle should have taken place at the super resource point closest to us. With 3 people out, a full formation should have been eliminated. There has been no movement for 2 minutes now. There is probably only the last one left in that place. That team is very fat now, we absolutely cannot afford to offend it, Kaylan said. He controlled the mecha and climbed to a hill made of rubble and gravel, and looked around. The nearest intermediate resource point to us is at the 12 o'clock direction, about 2,400 meters away, but this resource point is only about 1,000 meters away from the super resource point. If that team goes in this direction, if we search, we will reach this intermediate resource point before us, Kaylan continued his analysis. Although the weapons and equipment of that team should be top-notch, there is definitely not too much ammunition, energy crystals, and various tactical props. Especially in the finals, if there is a stalemate, the encounter can easily turn into a war of attrition. At this time, the competition is the material reserves of both sides. Unlike in chicken fighting games where the player character's backpack has a weight limit, the carrying capacity of mechas is much stronger than that of humans. Even if the supplies in half the competition area are gathered together, 3 mechas can easily carry them. Walk. Kaylan felt that if he were the commander of that team, after defeating the super resource point, he would definitely focus on the super resource point and gradually search the surrounding areas. This is the purpose of the event organizer. If you don't want to fight, the rich will only get richer, and the poor will get poorer, until the gap widens to the point where the rich side can easily overwhelm the entire field with its equipment advantage. We can't delay this any longer. Kaylan thought to himself, if we delay this any longer, the situation will only get worse and worse. There's no need to search the low-level resource points nearby. According to the nature of the event organizer, I guess there won't be anything good. We can't waste our precious time in these poor places, Kaylan said to the other 2. The person said, at least we have to start from the mid-level resource points, so that we can avoid being too far apart in terms of equipment. But there should be people at the nearest intermediate resource point, Valentina said. Then let's go to the lower city. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 352. The entire sandstone ruined city was built around this great rift valley in the wasteland that is nearly 20 kilometers long and more than 300 meters deep. Compared with the suspended city of Deval, the area of the ruins of this Alpha city is much larger, but with very little of value in it. If the suspended city of Deval is a high-end residential area of Alpha civilization, the sandstone ruined city is equivalent to a large slum. The living conditions here are not good, and there are not high-tech appliances that can be seen everywhere like the former. Many the buildings are still made of rough stones. There is neither electricity nor water in the house. The doors and windows are narrow and the space is cramped. The living comfort is not even as good as the human cities on the earth 1,000 years ago. Taking the lip-shaped rift valley from south to north in the center of the city as the dividing line, the entire city is divided into 3 major areas, the 2 upper urban areas located on the east and west sides of the Rift Valley, and the lower urban area located at the bottom of the Rift Valley. The event organizers have set up a super resource point in these 3 areas, but the resource point in Xiakan district has the least number of teams. This is because the terrain in Xiakan district is more complex, except for the flat blocks at the bottom of the valley. There are also a large number of building debris in the vertical space. Various cableways, bridges, and aerial platforms form an extremely dangerous 3-dimensional battlefield. Not to mention that there are a large number of caves dug out in the valley walls on both sides. At a glance, almost everywhere they are all locations where ambush can be set up. As for the second reason, it is because Xiakan district is right in the middle of the safe zone. Even if the team that falls here is killed from the super resource point, no matter which direction it develops, it will be attacked by multiple teams. If you stay in the distance and hang up, you won't be able to collect more supplies. I had been observing when I was parachuting before. There were only 3 teams that landed in the Rift Valley, and they were all very close to each other. They were obviously going to the super supply point. The lower city area was like a maze. The battle will not end as quickly as above, so I think that the three teams that jumped to the lower city area may not have finished the battle yet. Taking advantage of this opportunity, we can first focus on the high-level and intermediate resource points in the lower city area. Let's loot first, Kaylan said to the two of them. But, if you want to go to the Rift Valley, you have to pass through these blocks, and these places are full of people. If we go from here, we may encounter them. We have no weapons. The winning rate won't be too high, Valentina said a long series of words for the first time, which made Kaylan a little surprised. It seems that this girl is still the kind of completely hopeless girl who has nothing to do, and normal communication is still possible. Let's go underground. There is a shaft nearby that can go directly to the lower city area, Kaylan said. How do you know? This time, it was Valentina's turn to be surprised. Have you been here before? Don't forget that our group's job is to be ruins hunters, Kaylan said with a smile, but in fact, he has never been to this ruins, so he knew that there was a direct link to the ruins nearby. The shaft in the urban area, that's because a fallen street sign next to it said. It has to be said that being able to understand the text of Alpha civilization has a natural advantage in the ruins. Otherwise, Layton, who was originally in the starting position, would not be reduced to a substitute. The three of them quickly found the entrance to the shaft. Due to disrepair, the anti-gravity freight elevator in the shaft was no longer usable. Fortunately, there was a purely mechanical lifting platform nearby that could be used. The two mechas turned the huge winch together, and with the sound of the cable creaking, the lifting platform began to slowly descend. We have to move quickly. If the three teams in Xiakan district finish fighting, it may not be good, Kaylan said. However, this lifting platform seems to be equipped with some kind of limiter. No matter how they turn the winch, no matter how fast it is, the rate of decline has not changed. This was originally a design for safety reasons, but at this time Kaylan wished that these safety devices would be scrapped due to disrepair. There were many carving marks on the four walls of the shaft, some of which even formed complete characters. Kaylan tried to read them in his mind, but found that they were all words that had no actual meaning and could not even be connected into short sentences. Fragmented text. In the language system of Alpha civilization, a single character has no meaning. Only when the strings are combined to form a certain vocabulary or sentence, the corresponding content will be generated. This is different from English. The 26 letters in are somewhat similar, however, Alpha language has more than 20,000 basic characters of this type alone. Some characters do not even look like a word when picked out individually, but more like a random mess. Into graffiti. I don't know what the purpose of the Alpha people was in carving these characters on the well wall. Could it be that there is also a non-mainstream art form like graffiti among them? Just as Kaylan was muttering secretly, Akira Asano, who was sitting on the shoulder of his mecha, suddenly knocked the outer shell of the cockpit with his scabbard and whispered, "There are things under the lifting platform, the number is at least 100. It's just above and approaching quickly." More than 100, Kaylan was stunned. Since there are so many, they must not be from other participating teams. Could they be indigenous creatures wandering in the abandoned sandstone city? Didn't the event organizers clear out this ruins when they put in supplies? Asano, can you tell what kind of creatures these things are? It's hard to tell, but there is the sound of skin vibrating, and there is also the sound of claws scraping against the rock wall. Some are flying, and some are climbing on the rock wall. They are not large in size, but they move very fast. Come on, we are less than 20 meters away now. I heard it too, Valentina said. It was like a swarm of rats passing through the sewers. Ignore the winch for now, prepare to fight. As soon as Kaylan said this, Valentina had already drawn her dagger and stood in front of him. You said it yourself, we have to hurry up. Leave these things to me and you continue to turn the winch. I will help you clear the surrounding area. Asano Akira jumped off the mecha and held the handle of the sword. 2 seconds later, Kaylan finally saw these creatures coming up from below the shaft. These indigenous creatures with short gray hair on their bodies were like a mixture of bats and mice on the earth. They had a pair of slender, the thin wing membrane can glide briefly in the air. The front ends of the 3 pairs of short limbs have sharp claws, which can be easily inserted into the hard rock wall. The 4 mung bean-sized eyes exude a scarlet color in the darkness. Light, when they move at high speed, these 4 points of red light will drag into 4 streams of light. 4-eyed and 6-legged bat rats. Kaylan recognized these creatures. The individual strength is very weak, but they are gregarious creatures. Every time the group forages for food, hundreds or even thousands of bat rats will be dispatched together. Their attacks there is no threat to mechas, but be careful about the blood in their bodies. This stuff contains a certain amount of radiation and corrosiveness. Try not to let the joints of mechas be contaminated with their blood. As she spoke, Valentina had already rushed out. She swung her 2 fighting daggers tightly and cut open dozens of bat rats that rushed forward. Blood with green fluorescence splashed everywhere, and the whole body was suddenly covered with blood. The platform was enveloped in a green light. There are more down there, more and more, there are far more than 100 of them, Asano Akira said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 353. If it were just bat rats, this number could be handled. Kaylan said. At this time, Valentina no longer used her dagger to chop the bat rats that came out from under the lifting platform. She directly controlled them. The mecha rushed forward, the efficiency of crushing was much higher than slashing. In less than 10 seconds, Valkyrie's outer armor was covered with green bat rat blood, looking like cyberpunk-style fluorescent graffiti, but even so, there were still countless bat rats. They rushed towards the machine without fear of death. They stepped on the corpses of their companions and kept climbing up. Soon, Valkyrie's body was covered with layers of bats and rats, they gnawed them with their sharp teeth. Through the outer armor of the aircraft, even Kaylan, who was sitting in the cockpit of another aircraft, could hear the heart-wrenching, intensive scratching sound. Valentina simply let the machine squat down, and then directly activated the energy shield. A brilliant screen of light flashed across the darkness, and with Valkyrie as the center, a blank area with a radius of several meters was instantly cleared. Including those bat rats that climbed onto Valkyrie, at least 3,000 bat rats and more corpses were vaporized in this short moment, and a disgusting burning smell suddenly filled the area. The entire shaft. This is not normal, although small rodents like bat rats are ferocious in nature, they are still fundamentally different from low-level creatures without brains, such as cleft palates. Seek advantages and avoid harm is the nature of living things. If so many companions were killed, the remaining bats and rats should have fled in all directions. Kaylan thought with some confusion. Is it because there is something driving them? A mind-controlling rat king? Or some kind of pheromone that makes them crazy? No. None of these assumptions are valid. The 4-eyed, 6-legged bat rat is one of the indigenous creatures on Alpha Planet that has been studied more thoroughly by humans. There is no such thing as a rat king or a crazy pheromone. Things exist. Then why are they trying to stop us at all costs? Could it be that, this is the nest of these bat rats? Ian's expression suddenly froze, and the corners of his mouth twitched unnaturally. This luck, isn't it too much to memorize? Creatures such as bat rats belong to the bottom of the food chain of alpha indigenous creatures. Their individual strength is very weak. Even if they appear in groups, they cannot pose a great threat to humans with advanced weapons. It is no exaggeration to say that just by relying on a Valkyrie machine, even without weapons, can easily kill tens of thousands of bat rats in a large nest. But if there is a bat rat nest underneath this shaft, it means that the underground passage that originally had only one straight path may have turned into a super complex underground maze. The power of these inconspicuous little things to transform the terrain is so terrifying. As long as you give them enough time, even the entire rock formation can be completely hollowed out. No, we have to get back to the ground. Kaylan suddenly woke up and grabbed the winch, but just as he pushed the winch again in the opposite direction, there was a sudden click at the bottom of the lifting platform. There was a crisp sound. Kaylan felt that the winch in his hand suddenly lost its unique sense of resistance, and the entire lifting platform quickly fell to the bottom of the well. What kind of shabby safety device is this? It doesn't break when it should break, but it doesn't break when it shouldn't. Kaylan cursed, opened the cockpit door, and shouted to Asano Akira, "Get to the cockpit. Come in. Prepare for impact." "What's going on? Aren't we going down?" Valentina clung to the edge of the lifting platform and asked in the team channel. "The reason why these bats and rats are attacking us desperately is because this is their lair. The underground passages of the sandstone ruined city are probably riddled with holes by these guys, and we accidentally entered them. If so, you may not be able to get out in a short time." "You mean, we have to go back the way we came?" Valentina asked loudly. "Right. I got it." After saying that, her body turned around and grabbed K-Ian's body. "You also hold on to me, and I will fly up with you." Kaylan is still a whiteboard skeleton at this time. The thruster output of the skeleton is not enough to support the body to fly to the wellhead, but Valkyrie is equipped with an external thruster. Although this thing is a disposable consumable, the internal, once the filled fuel is used up, it cannot be replenished, but its output is more than 10 times that of the built-in propeller, which is enough to fly the two bodies out of the shaft together. There was a muffled bang sound, and hot tail flames shot out from the thrusters. However, just after the two machines were lifted a few meters, the thrust suddenly changed direction, causing the two machines to move headlong. "Hit the well wall." What's going on?" Kaylan asked hurriedly. Just now, he seemed to catch a glimpse of one of the two thrusters falling off Valkyrie's back on the monitor screen, as if it was being launched. The missile flew towards the wellhead. The other remaining thruster was completely out of control, and the tail flames it sprayed were fluttering around. In this case, even an ace pilot like Valentina could not maintain it. Keeping the balance of the machine, Kaylan were bumping around in the shaft. "It seems, the connector of the thruster is broken. I don't know why this happens." The series of bumps and impacts made Valentina's speech become choppy. As for Kaylan, he simply let go of the joystick and closed his eyes. Anyway, as long as he was not thrown out of the magnetic levitation seat by the inertia, he would definitely not fall to death. Akira Asano was also clinging to the back of K-Ian's chair. His condition should be considered the best among the three, but the problem was that in this situation, he couldn't do anything to help. I know, it's the blood of those bat rats that corroded the connectors of the propeller, and then under the maximum output, the corroded connectors were overwhelmed," Kaylan said with his eyes closed. "Although I figured out the reason, but it doesn't help anymore." Valentina reversed the elbow joint of the mech's right arm, and used a dagger to cut off the connecting piece of the remaining thruster. The unfettered thruster flew out instantly, and after several collisions with the well wall, exploded more than 20 meters above their heads. The two machines finally landed back on the lifting platform, but before they could catch their breath, the lifting platform hit the bottom of the shaft heavily. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 354. But that's not all yet. The hollowed-out bottom of the well only held up for less than half a second before suddenly collapsing. The dilapidated lifting platform continued to fall with Kaylan and the others, completely out of the scope of the well. The surroundings were no longer smooth and flat, but were replaced by rocks full of large and small holes like volcanic rocks. These rocks were extremely fragile and shattered under the impact of the lifting platform. They continued to fall for nearly after more than 100 meters, they came to a halt. Almost half of the bodies of the two mechas were buried in rubble. Fortunately, no one in the mecha was injured except for being a little dizzy. This place is the Bat Rat's lair. Valentina manipulated the machine to stand up from the rubble. She looked around. Many of the large and small holes were flashing with little bits of blood. Like these are all underage bat rat cubs. As for the adult bat rats, they have been killed by Valkyrie or crushed to death by the falling lifting platform. I have to say that the quality of this lifting platform is quite good. It is nearly 1.5 meters thick. It is made of multi-layer composite alloy. Judging from the luster, it seems that a lot of nano alloy has been mixed in. If it is dropped from such a high place, it still can't be lifted. By the way, it penetrated the bat and rat nest more than 100 meters deep, and the platform itself was only slightly deformed. If you have tools, you can cut this platform enough to make more than a dozen heavy shields, Kaylan muttered and walked to the winch. Only then did he realize that the safety device of the winch was not damaged for no reason. Yes, the blood of the bat rats that Valentina had just slaughtered almost covered the entire platform. This blood not only corroded the connectors of the thrusters, but also corroded the small parts inside the safety devices. I didn't expect that I would end up falling into the hands of these little things. Kaylan sighed and cast his gaze on the compass on the head-up display. Fortunately, there is no magnetic field interference in this place and all detection equipment is working. It was good, and communications with the outside world were not cut off. At a depth of nearly 400 meters, the machine could still receive messages from the event organizers. When they landed here, 3 more people were eliminated. Now, including the 3 of them, there are only 19 players left in the field. But things don't seem to be as bad as imagined. Anyway, as long as we get into the top 4, we can advance. If we have been hiding underground, maybe we can get into the top 4. Now I hope that the area of the bat rat's nest will be the best. It would be bigger. If it could go all the way to the center of the safe zone, that would be great, Kaylan said. Can you win like this? Valentina asked. It's definitely impossible to win, but at least those strong teams can eliminate the lone wolves fast enough, and we should be able to advance before the poisonous circle catches up with us. Since the signal is not blocked, it means that the locator built into their body is still functioning. In this way, even if they do not come into contact with the light curtain, as long as the positioning shows that they are outside the range of the light curtain, they will also be detected. Disuse. Climbing doesn't mean climbing up. These rock formations are too brittle and cannot support the weight of the machine body. Just dig towards the center of the circle, as far as you can. The standard combat dagger is actually not suitable for excavation operations, but compared to the engineer shovel in the emergency toolkit, the dagger blade used for mechas is still much wider, not to mention the rock formation itself is as crispy as a wafer biscuit. Just insert the dagger into it and stir it vigorously to make a big hole. The speed of the 2 machines in the bat rat's nest is not very fast, but at least they will not encounter other competing teams here. The only thing they need to pay attention to is not to use too much force and collapse the entire nest. In less than 10 minutes, 4 more people were eliminated, and the remaining number became 15. The event organizers' broadcast also sounded in the headphones of every remaining player. Only half of the remaining participating teams are left in the field. Now the electronic map will be unlocked for each participating player. 8 teams left? Kaylan was slightly startled. According to this calculation, there will be no more than 3 full teams left. Are there so many lone wolves? In addition, if our team is also fully staffed, at least one team that came out of the super resource point has experienced attrition. This is nothing more than 2 situations: they encountered other teams' siege, or encounter another team that has captured a super resource point. As soon as the broadcast ended, A zoomable electronic map suddenly appeared below the line showing the remaining number of people. Through this electronic map, the contestants could not only know their own coordinates and the scope of the safe zone, but also you can see the coordinates of other contestants on the field. Your own units are green dots, refreshed every second, while the enemy's units are red dots, refreshed every 120 seconds. Kaylan and the others' current position has entered the lower city area. According to this attrition rate, even if they stand still, they should be able to enter the top 4 before shrinking the circle. Based on the distance distribution between the red dots, Kaylan found that there were exactly 3 full formations left on the field, a remnant team of 2 people, and 4 lone wolves. But what made him dumbfounded was that the green dots of the 3 of them coincided with the red dot of a lone wolf. It looked as if the 2 sides were fighting hand to hand, but the fact was that the lone wolf was right there. On the ground above them, there was at least 100 meters of rock formation between them. There has been no attrition information in the past half day. Could it be that the other teams thought we were forming an illegal team? Kaylan thought to herself, and couldn't help but glance at the small surveillance drone that had been following them. At least the organizer of the event Fang and the audience can see their current situation, but the other contestants don't know it. It was okay for Kaylan and the others, but the situation for the lone wolf on the ground was not so good. The moment the map was unlocked, he noticed 3 red dots overlapping with his own, and he was so frightened that he almost jumped out of the driver's seat. Bounce up, according to the ratio between the map and the actual arena, the distance between these 3 enemies and him would not be more than 20 meters, but he didn't see anything. There were only ruins all around. He controlled the mecha to circle in place. He always felt that a black barrel would stick out of every window of every building at any time. The enemy, where are the enemies hiding? 3 against 1, why don't you take action? Are you trying to trick me? Why can't I see anything? Could they have gotten the optical camouflage armor? Supply point, is there such a thing in there? The pilot's palms were covered with sweat, and his heartbeat was getting faster and faster. After spinning around in circles for 7 or 8 times, he simply calmed down and picked up the plane through gritted teeth. The cannon fired indiscriminately at the surrounding area. As soon as the machine gun sounded, the nearby teams immediately focused their attention in this direction. It's the direction where 4 marked points overlapped before. They finally started fighting. If it's 1 on 3, the battle must be over. These should be the 2 remaining teams. But why is there only the sound of 1 weapon? This should be a 35mm caliber 4-barreled rotor cannon. If it can be suppressed by this weapon, the equipment of the other team must not be very good. Let's go break up the fight.